It's Analyses of Sorts back again at you with another video. I know it's been a long time since the last time I, uh, I uploaded, and a lot of things have taken place in our beautiful country of South Africa, and the hand of the globalists is becoming more and more apparent in our country, in our politics, in our courts, judicial system, and all these commissions are just a distraction from the agenda that is being pushed called Agenda 2030. They, there is a plan for where these globalists want the world to be. And I want to read these points to you guys. Okay. Le kgone ho utlwisisa hore this thing that we are dealing with Monana Bafethu is very serious. So hona le plan ntho e bitswang Agenda 2030. And the idea, yeah, this agenda is that the globalists want to create a new world order with a one world. So let's just read what they are implementing right now to ensure that by 2030 all of this is achieved. First is the Great Reset. Reset means to start over again from the beginning. Now the question is, what would have been destroyed in order for this reset to take place? That's the frightening thing. As they're resetting, which means collapsing every known system, every political, all the politics of every country, or every currency, every government, everything has to collapse, which will give rise to point number 2, one world government. So when we talk about a new world order, this is not a conspiracy, Bafet. We're talking about something real that is currently being implemented. After which, or alongside the fourth industrial revolution, which is a technocratic corporatocracy. The bundles corporatocracy controlled by technology. We're seeing that with all the nuclear plants that are being erected all over to power AI. So they don't want human involvement anymore. Everything's going to be ran by computers. Everything's going to be ran by AI, which makes us obsolete. Then the question is, what do they want to do with us? What are they planned that they're going to do with us? We will have total dependency on the state, or we will be totally dependent on the state. They're going to have a social credit system, which is what they're pushing right now with this textbook problem, reaction, solution plan that they always implement, where they create a crisis, and then when there's panic, people beg for a solution. And the solution they bring you always takes away your freedom. Then carbon footprint surveillance system, universal basic income for compliant citizens, or otherwise known as UBI. In South Africa, the plan is for every citizen to earn 5,000 Rand a month. Programmable central banking digital currency. This is why I keep telling you guys, get off currency. Find value in other things and trade and barter using other systems. Don't use the Rand. Stop using the currency. Stop using your digital banks. Not even cryptocurrency can save you. We need other forms of value in order for us to facilitate trade. That's what we need to start implementing in our communities. You can pay somebody back with labor. Somebody gives you vegetables. You say, okay, I will offer my labor or my services to do A, B, C, D in exchange. Guys, we have to start becoming independent. We cannot continue to rely on this system that has been created, because now they're packing up this system They're resetting the system. You cannot still be dependent on the system anymore. You need to detach yourself from it. This is a red pill moment where you need to unplug yourself from the matrix. Then there's depopulation, the depopulation agenda, which we're already seeing. All of these forced vaccinations, right? Mandatory vaccines for all ages, controlled fertility and reproduction, radical assisted suicide and abortion laws, 100% genetically manipulated food and soil. You have to now buy your seeds from Monsanto. You cannot produce your own seeds. And those Monsanto seeds cause the soil to die. They damage your soil, and the seeds only grow once, which takes away independence and autonomy. And it costs a fortune to even have access to seeds now. So only the rich can really get into farming. It's becoming more and more of an exclusive job or profession. They're going to ban all natural remedies and treatments, introduce a robot workforce, Internet of Things and Internet of Bodies, microchips and implantable brain interface and technologies, constant exposure to non-native EMFs and RFs, 5G, 6G, 7G, destruction of genders, destruction of motherhood and fatherhood, basically destruction of families, rationing of energy and all natural resources, restriction on non-essential air travel, smart cities which are being built everywhere, even in South Africa. We have all these massive investments from the UAE and all these countries coming in, building for their own convenience in our homeland. The private sector is just selling everything to the highest bidder. Countries are now being privately and remotely owned. Land is being privately and remotely owned, like shares and stocks in a company. Rationing of energy and all natural resources, restriction on non-essential air travel, smart cities, drones and facial recognition cameras, movement sensors, abolishment of private property, control and surveillance of nature and wildlife, restricted access to wilderness, human-free zones, sustainable development of the New World Order. Is this the world we want for our children? All of this is underway. Forced immigration is one of the symptoms of this agenda that is being pushed. And Buffett, this is happening all over the world. This is not just in South Africa. In Poland, Bal, Germany, they're crying about the same thing. Canada, USA, the Netherlands. Netherlands even they're banning all these NGOs. Leftist NGOs will be punished by law for aiding the illegal invasion. In South Africa, the NGOs have more power than our governments. They're taking our governments to court. Where have you? It's a ridiculous thing. How can you take the government to court? The Constitution is being used by NGOs to oppress us, which lets you know that the Constitution was made, our Constitution was made by globalists for the globalist agenda. Our so-called Freedom Charter is not for freedom. It's to entrap us, to enslave us. Because NGOs are taking the government to court for doing what's best for its people. So then what is the point of having a government? What is the point of being a citizen if foreigners have more rights than you? What is the point of having an identity card if benefits from our taxes are being given to illegal immigrants? If immigration is not being controlled and immigrants are being brought into your country by the millions, what is the point of nationality, of borders of a country? And that's exactly what they're trying to do away with. They want to destroy all borders. They want to destroy the notion of countries, identity, and culture, and create a one world melting pot that can be controlled from a central place where you will have no claim to a homeland, you will have no identity. There will be a one world government, one world religion, and a new world order with centralized power. And the citizens will be under constant surveillance, living on a universal basic income, and having been microchipped so that you are controlled from the internet and digitally. Those of you that accept these coming conditions will be living in hell. I promise you. You will have no freedom. This is why we must resist. I saw a nice little comment from somebody online who said that. I hope you guys can see it. He said, developed nations in Europe are revolting against mass immigration with routine protests. Australia, UK, Sweden, Germany, France, Ireland, Poland, Netherlands. South Africa, with 60% poverty and 42% unemployment, is behaving like the kingdom of heaven with a free for all approach. South Africa cannot afford to accommodate foreigners. We should have shut down all the embassies and stopped giving out visas. We have an unemployment crisis. Youth unemployment is 60% or 70%. We cannot afford to be giving jobs to foreigners when our people are suffering. It's a violation of our human rights as citizens, but you don't see the NGOs fighting the government to protect the citizens. They only fight for foreigners. And this is happening all over the world. Allowing NGOs anymore. They're punishing NGOs for aiding illegal invasions. We should be doing the same in South Africa because they're aiding and abetting foreigners. This must be taken to court. But instead, our courts are trying to shut down Operation Dudula and stop them from protecting the citizens. Now, to show you that this is not unique to us, I want to show you a video of somebody who did a really amazing video reacting or commenting to this immigration crisis that is being enforced by globalists. The global elites are forcing it in order to usher in Agenda 2030. And I want you guys to listen and watch what he's saying because he makes a lot of sense.
While Trump celebrates the ceasefire in that little theater in Jerusalem, he's patting himself on the back. There's another story in Europe that I wanted to talk to you guys about that shows exactly what's happening. You could probably call this donor-driven elite policy and what it looks like when it goes full authoritarianism on the general population. This one hits different because it's not about foreign wars. It's about what happens when your own government decides that you don't get to choose who lives in your neighborhood anymore. Sweden is insane. I don't even know. This, by the way, thank you. Thank you to the person that emailed me a bunch of links. You know who you are. I actually read my email, you guys. So if you want to email me stuff like that, scoops, information, I spend all day researching this stuff to prepare. So the Social Democratic Party just had their Congress in May 25, and they formalized this policy that they're calling population mixing. I'm not joking.
This is in Sweden, by the way. One of the more liberal countries that has had a massive refugee program over the years, the past 15 years, where they've been bringing in people from Somalia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, Afghanistan, you name it. And it has completely changed their demographics. It's changing their culture. And the natives of Sweden are losing their rights in the same way that it's happening in the UK, in Poland, the Netherlands, the US, Canada, South Africa, Australia, everywhere. You cannot tell me it's a coincidence that the same agenda is being pushed all over the world, all at the same time. This is going to be a long video, guys, so buckle up, fasten your seatbelts, and let's listen closely. I want to show the parallels between what's happening in other countries and what's being enforced and pushed in South Africa. It's the same hand. It's the same globalist hand that's pushing the same agenda around the world. Politicians are puppets that are there to execute these instructions that are being given to them by members of the Committee of 300, for example, the Rothschild. In South Africa, for us, it's the Oppenheimers, Ruperts, Herzogs, Menels, Koos Becker, and The Koos Beckers of this world, the Christo Visas. That is the hand, and the NGOs, Kopanong, Africa Against Xenophobia, nonsense like that, SERI, NGOs like that are trying to bully us, the South African Human Rights Commission that is ran by foreigners, and some sell out South Africans whom I honestly doubt they're actually South Africans. A lot of people with South African citizenship today are projects that have been groomed from an early age to be sellouts, to push the globalist agenda. Remember, Margaret Thatcher spoke to Oppenheimer, spoke to Rupert about the 1994 transition before it happened. F.W. de Klerk was in the room. Margaret Thatcher ignored him. She spoke to the people who are actually in charge of the country, not your presidents and your politicians. Those people have no power. They're just there to execute the instructions given to them by the global elites. Africa does not own its land, does not own its resources, except Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger. Every other country is owned and controlled by America, by Britain, by France, etc., etc. Even if you have a title deed, you don't own that land. It is owned in South Africa. Our country is owned by Britain and America. Even if you have a title deed, it's not your land. Everybody answers to the crown, the British crown.
Be real what that actually means. They're forcing native Swedes to accept migrants in their communities, into their schools, into their neighborhoods, whether they want to or not. Does that sound familiar to you? I think America went through something like this. And when I say forcing, I mean like literally they're being forced, not with bayonets and weapons pointed at them, but in another way, a very communist kind of way. So the party's slogan is literally nobody has the right to choose their neighbor. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's their actual campaign message.
Nobody has the right to choose their neighbor. That's what we're being told in South Africa. They're pumping refugees into the black communities. The natives of the land are being attacked. They're pumping or asylum. Everybody has asylum now. Everybody's a refugee, even though their countries are not going through war. And the government is getting paid by the UN to bring more refugees into the country, which tells you that the UN is also a part of this globalist agenda to replace native populations with immigrants who have no stakes to a homeland.
Has the right to choose their neighbor. Think about that for a second. Your government telling you that you don't get a say in who moves in next door, who your kids go to school with, who your community, or I should say, what your community looks like. And this is coming from the same party that spent the last 50 years importing hundreds of thousands of migrants from Somalia, fucking Afghanistan, Syria, Iraq. This is the same party that created the conditions where native Swedes fled to wealthy villa towns to get away from the crime. And now they're following Swedes into those safe areas and forcing them to take migrants there too. So the hypocrisy is fucking breathtaking. Here's the timeline for everyone. So back in the 70s, Sweden's parliament unanimously adopted multiculturalism as a national policy, right? So the socialist government was saying that we're going to be diverse and humanitarian and open our borders. And the migrants came, hundreds of thousands of non-Europeans, right? And they didn't integrate at all. Shocker. Shocker to literally nobody. They formed parallel societies in the suburbs. Welfare dependency, gang violence, cultural practices that are completely incompatible with Swedish values. And the crime rates exploded. Okay, Sweden's rape rate increased 1,472% since 1975. 1,472%. Do you understand what that means? You have 42,000, nearly 43,000 reported rapes in the last 5 years alone. 997 bombings. 40,000 women subjected to genital mutilation. Let me say that again for you. 40,000 women with female genital mutilation in Sweden in fucking Sweden. And native Swedes looked at this and they did what any rational person would do. They moved, bro. They self-segregated into wealthy areas where they could raise their families safely, right? And where their daughters wouldn't get fucking raped walking home from school, where their property wouldn't get blown up by gang warfare and all this crazy shit. And the socialist elites call them racist for it. Unfucking believable. Now, the same.
Is this ringing any bells? You stand up to the global elites, you get called racist, you get called xenophobic by your own government and by your own moronic citizens. Like clockwork. Are you getting it? Do you see that it's the same globalist hand pushing the exact same playbook all over the world at the same time? You push back against the global elites. What do they call you? Xenophobic. They call you racist. They started comparing things to apartheid and slavery, even though that's a pure gaslighting technique, because what they're doing to us is akin to apartheid and slavery. But because they control the media narrative, they can change it into anything they like. They can kill you and gaslight you into making it your fault that you died. This is how evil these people are, and that's what we're dealing with right now.
Are doubling down. So instead of admitting that mass migration, immigration, whatever you want to fucking call it, failed horrendously, instead of closing the borders and deporting the criminals, instead of demanding assimilation, they're forcing population mixing. They're saying that the problem isn't that we brought in the people who won't integrate. The problem is that Swedes won't live with them. Fucking liberal logic. So here's what they're doing, guys. Here's their galaxy brain plan. They're banning municipalities from placing new migrants in the suburbs that are already overrun with crime. So instead, they're mandating relocations to wealthy areas. Socioeconomically strong zones is what they are, right? So they place, or I would say, the place where.
Same thing they're doing with us with the whole One Africa narrative. Our CBDs have completely been overrun by illegal foreigners in South Africa. And when they're done with the CBDs, guess what, white people? They're coming to your areas. They're going to force them to live with you while you guys are quiet. Black people have been fighting this thing. You guys have been quiet, safely living in your suburban areas, thinking that you're safe and far away from immigrants. They're coming. These are global elites. They don't care about your race. All you white people that have been quiet, this thing is going to hit your schools, your communities, your workplaces, your hospitals, your private hospitals. There'll be nowhere for anybody to run to or escape to anymore. Only the politicians will be safe with their private security and high walls and fences. And Buffett, we have to start invading politicians' homes, forcing ourselves to live in their homes, eat their food, demand free healthcare and education. And if they protest, we say, no, you are doing the same thing to us and you're telling us we must integrate and live with these people. So you must also integrate and live with us. We have to start invading the homes of politicians. And if they kill us, then that's genocide and xenophobia. If they use private security to kill us or the South African police service, then that is genocide. That's xenophobia. Because we are not allowed to do anything to these foreigners while they're invading us. So therefore, the politicians cannot do anything to us when we invade their homes. Politicians are not living anywhere near these foreigners. They've got protection, security, high walls, gates, everything. But the citizens don't have the right to decide who gets to be their neighbor. It's nonsense.
Native Swedes move to escape all this bullshit. And they're using housing policy to do this. They're seizing land. They're reallocating property. This is fucking treason. They're building subsidized apartment buildings in the middle of villa towns. Single family home neighborhoods getting these rental complexes that are fucking dropped in there with state subsidies. And if municipalities resist, if the local governments say, no, we don't want this shit in our backyard, the national government withholds infrastructure funding until they comply. That's
Again, this is happening in first world countries the same way it's happening in South Africa. It's the same globalists. They're using our tax money. Hence why I said we need to move away from using the rand. We need to stop paying taxes. We are funding our own oppression.
Fuck, dude, that's extortion under the guise of policy. That's insane. In education, they're busing, children now in small towns that they centralized the schools, and then they started transporting these kids to achieve what they called mixed schools because 75% of students in some areas had foreign backgrounds. So they're busing Swedish kids into these environments. They're taking your child and putting them into a dangerous school filled with migrants that have not assimilated, migrant children. You're going to see videos of Swedish boys and girls getting absolutely fucked up in these schools where they're going to be hated and the minority in their own country. They're using them in what critics call integration tools. Swedish children, dude.
South Africans are already minorities in schools, in the workplace, and very soon in government. Every position of influence and power, native South Africans are in the minority. This is by design.
Being used as tools to integrate migrants who refuse to assimilate. How fucking maddening is that? This is treason. Your government, the Swedish government, is putting your kids on buses and sending them to schools with 75% foreign students from cultures where women are property, where honor killings are normal, where sexual assault rates are through the fucking roof. And you're supposed to smile and call that shit diversity. And they had a televised debate, right? And during the televised debate, the social democratic leader, her name is Magdalena Anderson, she was confronted about this exact problem. And she denied it. It's no surprise, woman too, this is coming from a woman. She said the accusations of forced mixing and busing children are fabrications, lies. Except the Congress documents explicitly state that the population must be mixed. They have a dude named Jonas Attinius, and he's the senior in Gothenburg, an official, and he got quoted as, the population must be mixed over a generation. Not encouraged to mix, not incentivized to mix, must be mixed by government force. Holy shit. You thought America had problems. And the person heading the integration working group says that they're serious about breaking segregation and they're going to use housing as the primary engine for this change. And when they say they're breaking segregation, what they mean is breaking up Swedish communities, forcing them to accept what their government imposed on them. And this is the part that makes it should make you fucking enraged. The elites pushing these policies, the party leaders, the wealthy socialists, where do they live? Take a guess. In segregated areas, wealthy enclaves, in protected communities where, they don't have to deal with any of this stink. They live in the exact same self-segregated neighborhoods that they're condemning native Swedes for creating. But when regular Swedes try to protect their families, try to choose safe neighbors for their children, that's racism. That's bigotry. That must be destroyed by state intervention. And when you point this out, they'll call you a Nazi. They say that you're far right, that you hate immigrants, you're against diversity.
Sound familiar? You're Afrophobic, you're xenophobic. You see, we're dealing with African immigrants whose IQ is not high enough for them to grasp the fact that they're being used by globalists to usher in the New World Order. These guys are busy on our streets crying and screaming, one Africa. This is Africa, this is one. But this is being pushed all over the world, mixing and forced integration by force. You don't have the choice. Forcing you to mix with these people that don't share similar values as you, that believe in rape, in selling drugs, in human trafficking, organ harvesting. These are their values. They believe in these things. They believe in these things, Buffett. We are being forced to live with uncivilized people that don't respect the rights of others. They only think about their own rights. They don't care that they're encroaching on other people's rights. They cry all day as if they're victims, talking about their own rights, forgetting other people also have rights. They don't care about those rights. One Africa, one Africa. They think they are activists, but you won't see them in Congo or in Nigeria or Rwanda or South Sudan talking about one Africa where people are literally genociding or blacks are that are war torn, asking for one Africa, a united Africa. They're always where the greener pastures are, demanding those that have worked hard to create better conditions for themselves to integrate them into society because they failed with their own countries. It's a globalist agenda, but these stupid African immigrants are not smart enough to understand how they're being used as pawns. They think they're activists that are fighting for something worthwhile. Dummies.
Fucking bigot. But this isn't about hating immigrants. This is just what happens when you import hundreds of thousands of people from cultures fundamentally incompatible with values that are incompatible and then refuse to demand that they assimilate. And what this creates is basically massive crime and social problems. And then your solution is to just force everyone else to live with the consequences of your failed policies. That's bullshit. So let's talk about what the consequences actually are, because the statistics are fucking horrifying. I only read you a few. So 1,472% increase in rape since mass immigration began. And we're not talking about like, date rape or gray area consent issues. We're talking about gang rapes, child rapes, violent sexual assaults by migrants from cultures where women who aren't covered up are considered fair game. Swedish girls, teenagers getting gang raped by migrant men who face criminal consequences that are minimal at best because the courts are terrified of being called racist. I shit you not. And when parents try to protect their daughters by moving to a safer area, by choosing schools with fewer foreign students, the government shows up and forces mixing on them. They had 997 bombings in 5 years. Think about that. In Sweden, this is one of the safest countries in the world for decades. It used to be, at least. Now they're averaging 200 bombs per year. Gang warfare over drug territory, grenade explosions, explosions in general. They're turning Swedish cities into war zones. And 40,000 cases of female genital mutilation. 40,000 women, you guys, who had their genitals cut off because their families brought that fucking practice from Somalia. And nobody in the Swedish government had the balls to say that's not acceptable here. We don't do that. If you want to live in Sweden, you have to leave that barbaric shit behind. But they didn't say that. They said diversity is our strength. They said we must be tolerant. They said that questioning these practices is Islamophobic. And 40,000 women paid the fucking price for that. And now when Swedes self-segregate to protect their families from all of this, the government calls it a problem. Calls it creating parallel societies. Yeah, the Swedes are creating the parallel society in their own society. Does that make any fucking sense? And then it forces them back into contact with the exact populations that they were fleeing. The policy is called integration. But let's be honest about what that actually is. It's punishment. It's the Swedish government punishing native Swedes for noticing mass immigration failed completely and totally. For noticing that the rape rates exploded, for noticing that their daughters aren't safe anymore, and for having the audacity to move somewhere safer. White flight, how dare you? So now you're going to mix, whether you like it or not, citizen. Nobody has the right to choose their neighbor. Your kids are going to go on the bus to the 75% foreign background school. Your wealthy neighborhood is getting the subsidized housing complex. And if you complain, you're a bigot. So government apologized, and this is how fucking far gone Sweden is. The government, you guys, has apologized to migrants for placing them in the suburbs initially. The government said that
Cyril Ramaphosa was visiting spaza shops to go and basically greet them and be nice to people that have murdered our children with poisonous expired food. Are you guys seeing this? Are you seeing the parallels here? The government is apologetic Cyril Ramaphosa apologizing to immigrants, saying that South Africans are xenophobic. Julius Malema going to Nigeria, calling South Africans xenophobic. Are you guys getting it? This is what we're dealing with, and it's global. It's not just in South Africa, it's everywhere.
Society needs to intervene, and comprehensively as well, over a generation to fix this integration debt. Integration debt? Excuse the fuck out of me? Like Sweden owes something to the people who came as refugees and then formed parallel societies and then refused to adapt to Swedish values. They have a debt to them. What debt? You took them in. You gave them welfare. You gave them housing, opportunities, and they responded by creating no-go zones where the police can't even go anymore. They formed criminal gangs. They maintain practices like fucking cutting off, genitals, mutilation, all that stuff. Honor killings, raping Swedish women at rates 1,400%. That's insane. And Sweden owes these people a debt? Are you fucking kidding me? The party's billing this shit as a U-turn, believe it or not, on integration. This is a U-turn for them. They're acknowledging that the past policies of placing migrants in suburbs didn't work, but they're not acknowledging why it didn't work. They're not saying we brought in too many people too fast. They're incompatible with our culture. No. They're not saying that we should have demanded more assimilation. Not saying that we should stop letting in 94 fucking thousand migrants per year when the economy is shrinking and their welfare system's collapsing. No. You know what they're saying the problem is? Segregation somehow. Swedish people choosing to live with other Swedish people. That's the problem, comrade. I get it now. So we'll fix it by state force now. And when you look at who's pushing this shit, follow the money, you guys. Follow the donors. Follow the NGOs that profit from mass migration. Follow the construction companies that get contracts to build the subsidized housing. Follow
construction mafias, NGOs, water tank mafias. Are you guys getting it? It's the same playbook globally. It's the same playbook. Buffett, please share this video. Tell everybody that you know. Make them aware of what's happening. Because the entire world of people that understand what is actually going on need to stand together to fight their governments and to fight this globalist agenda. The media won't tell you all of these things because all of the world's medias are captured. They lie to the citizens and they lie to the world about what's happening in these countries so they can hide this invasion, this coup that's taking place.
politicians whose careers depend on the minority voting blocks that they fucking import. Scumbag cocksuckers. This is Sweden's version of what we talked about with Trump and Adelson. Foreign interests and elite donors dictating policy that fucks over regular citizens while the people making the decisions are insulated from those consequences. Anderson, the female leader, who's standing there denying forced mixing while her party's Congress documents explicitly mandate the shit. And they're all living in these wealthy segregated areas while forcing other Swedes to accept migrants in theirs. Sounds like our Democrats. Sounds like our Republican elite. The same hypocrisy as Trump joking about Adelson not saying if she loves America more. These are elites. She loves America more. These are elites, and they're making the decisions that regular people have to live with. And when regular people try to protect themselves, you try to create a safe fucking community for yourself, for your family, the government comes and crushes you for it, right? So they're thinking, okay, what does this mean for Sweden's future, for example? Because we're not just talking about policy, right? We're talking about demographic replacement, cultural destruction, wholesale by the state, the end of Sweden and Swedes as you know it. If you force population mixing across an entire country, if you bus children to majority foreign schools, if you build migrant housing in every Swedish neighborhood, if you do this over a generation like they're planning, what do you get? You get a country where native Swedes are a minority in their own homeland. where Swedish culture is diluted and eventually erased, where entire neighbors that were once safe for a fucking 1,000 years become dangerous, as they have been for the past 20 years in Sweden. Look at Malmo. It's a shithole. Women can't walk home alone. Gang violence reigns supreme. Islamic cultural practices replace Swedish ones. That's the future you want for Europe? And before someone says that's hyperbole, that's not how any of this shit works. Look at the suburbs they already destroyed, motherfucker. Look at Malmo. Look at the no-go zones. That's what happens when you concentrate migrants from non-assimilating cultures. Migrants, period, that don't assimilate. I'm not even going to give you the culture route. Fuck that shit. Fuck it. I don't care. Culture or not. Migrants, end of story, that don't assimilate. And then they're spreading across the entire country by force at the hands of the government. The Social Democrats know that this will take a generation. They're admitting that much at least. And a generation of forced mixing, no less. A generation of Swedish children being used as integration tools by the government, right? You have generation of property seizures, mandatory relocations. What the fuck communist shit is that? And at the end of all that, at the end of that generation, Sweden won't be Swedish anymore. I guarantee it. It'll be balkanized mess of competing ethnic and religious groups with no shared values or culture. Look at the UK. Look at London. Look at fucking Paris. When the crime rates that make it unlivable and then coupled with Sharia law in some areas, mixed in with Swedish law in the others, then you have like honor killings on another side, gang warfare right next to that, and the rape statistics that keep climbing. Jeez Louise, dude, that's not integration. That's civilizational suicide. And it's being mandated by a government that claims to represent the people while telling them that they have no right to choose who lives next door. How does that work? And the Gen Z Swedes, dude, they're watching all this and they're fucking angry. Both the conservative and the liberal young Swedes are looking.
Unfortunately, our Gen Z in South Africa are high and drunk. That was also by design. Watch my previous video. I talked about how Oppenheimer controls the addiction industry, from illegal tobacco to the Nyaope crisis to the farms that are making all of these drugs to be distributed by Nigerians and other foreigners in our communities to completely destroy our youth, to de-radicalize them so that they're focused on Amapiano and groove, constant distractions from Maphorisa, Kabza, all these artists that are constantly putting out music, Scots Mapoma, new dances are coming out every week. People are spending time learning, our youth are learning choreography instead of understanding how their country is being taken away from them. Taverns are the #1 moneymaker all over townships and all over black communities that are being opened deliberately to distract the people, to keep them drunk in the spirit of escapism. Spaza shops are selling drugs to our children disguised as candy to make them early drug addicts. That is genocide. It's treasonous, it's genocide.
Looking at what's happening, and they're saying that this is fucked because they're the ones who have to live with it. They're the ones getting raped. They're the ones that are watching their neighborhoods destroyed. They're the ones who don't have a country that looks anything like the Sweden that their grandparents knew. And the polls are showing it. The Sweden Democrats, by the way, the populist party that wants closed borders and return migration and the end to this insanity, they're gaining. The 2026 elections are looking like essentially a referendum on forced integration.
Elections are going to be rigged, Rafet, all over the world. We've seen in Tanzania what just happened. Elections are going to be, guys, you think the globalists will allow you guys to take power through a vote? That's an illusion. They will never allow democracy to do its actual job.
Pretty much what it's going to come down to. And the Social Democrats, might finally face the consequences of 50 plus years of failed policies. But even if the Sweden Democrats win, even if they close the borders tomorrow, even if they stop all this new migration completely, the damage is done, dude. You have hundreds of thousands of migrants who won't assimilate, who won't leave, who have birth rate.
In South Africa, we have 27 million illegal immigrants in a country whose population is supposed to be what, 60 odd million? And 40 million of them are supposed to be native black South Africans. You got over 27 million illegal immigrants who are making babies faster than South Africans are. Do you understand the level of crisis that we're in? The damage that's already been done. It's damn near impossible to reverse this. We are going to have to completely close off our borders and start a deportation program over the next 20 years. I'm talking every man, woman, and child and Jolofina must go out of our country. That is the only way we can reclaim our country, Bafej. We cannot live with 27 million immigrants. That means the country is not ours. South African women, stop opening your legs to these men. Why is that so difficult for you guys to understand?
Way higher than native Swedes, who are having 5 or 6 kids while Swedish families only having 1 or 2 at most. The demographics are locked in, boys. Even without new migration, the Muslim population keeps growing. The parallel societies will keep expanding and the crime will keep increasing because you can't undo 50 years of mass immigration with one fucking election. Sweden is a warning. This is what happens when you let elites with donor money and globalist ideology dictate immigration policy. When you prioritize being called tolerant over protecting your own people and you refuse to demand assimilation, right? This is punishment of your own citizens for noticing the problems. And then you're trying to escape them. That's fucking wild. And when it all falls apart, when the crime is undeniable, when the cultural clashes are fucking everywhere and your people are fleeing, the elites will double down as if, bro. And they blame you for self-segregating, forcing mixing. They use your children as fucking tools. You have no right to choose your neighbor, dude. What is that? That's not democracy. That's authoritarianism. That's your government destroying your country and forcing you to participate in the destruction. The American parallel should be obvious for you guys right here. We're watching the same thing play out here. We had mass immigration from incompatible cultures that refused to fucking assimilate. They turned into their own carve-outs. They're voting in their own leadership, quite literally, and they're forcing out the natives in a sense. That's why the elites refuse to enforce the borders or demand assimilation. It's a cheap workforce for them and it divides the people. And that donor money, dude, that donor money is hard to turn down, especially if you need it to win an election. And that's what drives the policy. That's what's hurting, for example, the American worker. And when Americans notice and complain, they also got called racist. The only difference is that we're not as far down the path as Sweden is, for example, yet, right? Yet. But if the elites had their way, if Dems won, for example, or if the NGOs and donors and globalists got full control or are not dismantled totally by the time, let's just say, Vance is finishing with his 2 terms, if he gets to run twice and win, we'd be doing the same exact force mixing bullshit too. We're not that far behind. We'd be busing kids. We'd be reconstituting societies too, neighborhoods. We were already doing black flights. We were already having demographic shifts in small towns. Remember, they're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs. Yeah. You would have been told that you have no right to preserve your community. That's what America First was supposed to prevent. That's why borders matter for those Europeans that are listening. That's why assimilation matters. That's why you can't just import millions of people from the third fucking world and expect them to become whatever it is country that they moved into. For us, let's just say American. Sweden is like the laboratory experiment for what happens when you try and the experiment fails catastrophically. You get rape, bombs, mutilated women, and destroyed communities. And instead of admitting the failure and changing course, the Swedish government is forcing everybody to live in the hell of their failed experiment. That's what elite policy looks like. That is why Europe has an uprising of far right, as they call them, communities or populist leaders. Because if you thought America was bad, I just spelled out to you what's going on in Sweden. So anyways, let's get into some of these supers. We'll react to some videos. Why not?
South Africans, I hope you understand. This is not an isolated incident. It's happening all over the world. And do not be gaslit by them calling you xenophobic for fighting for your country. Don't be gaslit by them mocking you on the internet. Our fight is not on the internet. We're on the ground with it. And we will get arrested and we will die for what we believe. And we will die to protect our country. We will die to protect our heritage and the great works of our ancestors. We will die. We will be arrested. We're not trying to run away from that. We know that that's an inevitability when you're fighting for freedom. We will not get to enjoy the freedom that we want in our country. We are the sacrifices. And we must be willing to make that sacrifice so that our children can have a country to live in where they don't get raped and they don't get abused in their own country. Like I said, there's an Agenda 2030. Take the time to read through all of this to find out what exactly they're planning for us. And be brave and bold enough to stand for our homeland, South Africa, and resist all these stupid immigrants talking about one Africa that have never fought for anything in their lives in their own country, but they want to come to South Africa and preach to us about human rights. Get the fuck out of here.